You are tuned in to She's Crowned with Confidence with host Dr. Nicole Steele. This Power Pack podcast was designed to remind listeners of who and whose they are and to encourage, equip, and empower them to regain their confidence and reclaim their crown. Are you ready to fully embrace what makes you uniquely you? Gain clarity on what you were created to do and to show up in the world unapologetic and authentic through and through? Well, if so, then this podcast is for you. It's time to regain your confidence and reclaim your proverbial crown that was designed with you in mind. No longer second guessing the greatness that lies within, but instead stepping all the way into it with newfound clarity, confidence, and courage. So, without further ado, it's time to adjust your crown and sit on down for another inspiring episode of She's Crowned with Confidence.
Okay. Hey there, welcome to another episode of She's Crowned with Confidence. I am your host, Dr. Nicole Steele, the confidence coach, and this confidence cast is designed for ladies, leaders, and little girls. Through this work, I get a chance to connect with dynamic women and young adults who are out in this world doing incredible things. And so those of you that tune in on a regular basis, you know I often have a crown atop my head, with the whole She's Crowned with Confidence. But today in particular, I don't. And there's a reason for that. It's because for many of us, we go through life and life's circumstances can snatch our crowns, right? We could be going through life with our proverbial crowns on and things are going well, but tragedy and trials and trauma can hit our life like a freight train and knock our crowns off. And so it's important for us to take moments to regroup, to acknowledge, but to also remember that at any point in time, we can pick those crowns up off the ground and affix them back to our head. So that's just a little note, a little nugget for y'all, some of y'all to take with you. But without further ado, I want to invite my beautiful special guest, Miss Genese, to introduce herself because we're going to get into it. We are going to talk about real life circumstances and how to overcome them with confidence. So Genese, welcome to the show. Can you tell our guests a little bit about yourself?
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Doctor. I am Genese, and I currently am a third-year medical student, and I'm pursuing a master's, an MBA. I live in the Chicagoland area, and what I'm doing now currently is using my experience with health and wellness overall to incorporate into emotional intelligence and specifically becoming what I call an emotional conqueror. Somebody who's able to assess, strategize, and execute an elevated emotion in order to achieve elevated results in life.
I love that. Oh, I cannot wait to get into it. Before we get started in that, because I think that work in emotional intelligence is so crucial. And I just appreciate people like yourself that are helping not only women, but people in general, dig deep. And kind of unpack those layers, peel them back, and really get to the essence of who we are. Self-awareness is so important. So before we get into some of the background and maybe even some introductions into that body of work, Genese, can you tell me about what has led you to this journey? So were you always one that was trying to learn about yourself? How did you stumble in, or did you stumble into this body of work, into the, what you're doing now?
Well, I'll start by saying, as I mentioned before, in 2025, I'll be finishing my MD. And then this year, I'll be finishing my MBA. And I am just blissfully and joyfully busy on a regular basis with building my coaching business, finding events for public speaking. But it hasn't always been this way. When I was 19, I lost my mother tragically and suddenly to a brain aneurysm. And at that point, she was like my only ally. She was the one person who I felt like had my back in everything. And from there, just the pure just loss, it sent me to a free fall. I emotionally, spiritually, financially, any way you can imagine, I was at my rock bottom because I didn't have my backbone there. To the point where I ended up jumping from family member's house to family member's house, looking for the love that she had given me, trying to fill that void that was there now in my life, and going from depression and despair on a regular basis. And even to the point where, like I said, I had burned so many bridges with family members. I ended up living in a car for a couple of weeks because it was just like I didn't know where else to go. And in that point of my life, I just realized like my mom had so much love for me. She had so much faith in what I could do and my abilities. And there was a point where things kind of clicked. Even though I was in that low state, there had been some kind of like lights at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, for me, where I was able to see a little bit of hope, a little glimmer of hope. And so from there, it was like, oh, okay, well, if I start to live my life more on that faith, let's see what happens. And so after these peaks and valleys, at the valleys, I would remember and have that faith that, okay, things are still working out for me. I just had to keep going, like my mother will always want me to. And so from there, the valleys wouldn't be so low, or they wouldn't seem to last as long. And then when I got to the highs, I could really rejoice in those highs and understand that, okay, these are patterns. This is not a life sentence. This low that you're in is not a life sentence. It's just a season. And so being able to go from living my life out of fear and desperation and depression and hopelessness, I began to move towards faith-based living. And it moved me towards freedom and empowerment and joy and love. And even though I wasn't able to find that exact love of my mother, I found that love within. I was able to build that love from within and understand from her position that I was worthy.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm so sorry to hear about such a loss, and especially being a young person and having to experience it. But I think that it's so powerful that you held on to hope, and I think that that could be encouraging to someone who may be listening, who, much like you, they might be dealing with real loss of relationships, physical loss of loved ones, or maybe the loss of circumstances. And hope is weighing, and it's seems like it's not in reach. But I hope that hearing you and listening to stories much like yours, that they can know that what they need is on the inside. It's on the inside. And if
Mhm.
you reach for it and you hold on to it and you press day by day in faith,
Mhm.
that there is light at the end of the tunnel. And so, can you tell me, Genese, so during the journey, in the absence of your beautiful mother, what, in addition to the work that you were doing internally, um, who did God surround you with? And can you tell us about people who stood in the gap or walked alongside you or motivated you? Because the people that we allow in our lives play a role, positively or negatively. So, were there angels along the way? Were there encounters that you had? Were there people maybe that, of course, could never take the place of your mother, but still helped you to where you are right now, getting ready to graduate in just a minute?
Yes, yes, yes. And you know what? I'll say this because I was an only child and I was homeschooled for a number of years. I tend to be a loner and enjoy like my isolation. But there have been people even outside of just me, just working through my junk and talking to myself and giving myself pep talks. There's been people who have helped me along in this journey. One person I'll give credit to, my ex-husband. And even though we had a rocky relationship and things didn't work out ultimately, just having someone there. He was one of the first people that was there when I found out my mother had passed. And so he was one that just really kind of helped me. And I was living, like I said, I'm here in the Chicagoland, and my mother's 3 hours away, and the rest of my family are 3 hours away. So him being there was significant for me. Just having somebody there to kind of catch me as I was falling and just a mess at that point because I just heard the news. But our relationship is giving me a lot of perspective as far as my possibilities, because he's had faith in me and my abilities too, and wanting me to continue to pursue medical school and everything that I've dreamed of. But then it's also given me that grit as well, that kind of resilience that you mentioned as well, where it's like where we're having issues. And again, I'll hit a dark point where it's like, man, this isn't working. I'm not successful in the relationship. But then after maybe some therapy or just again going within and saying, well, what was my part in it? Being able to kind of get to a place where, okay, I'm okay now, and so kind of working through those patterns with my ex-husband was one that helped me a lot to continue to just keep pushing on and understanding that if I can survive that, I can survive anything.
That's
Uh,
real.
but yeah, and then
Uh-huh.
too, like having relationships with like church members, and there have been family members along the way too that have given me encouragement, and they make me feel that I can do anything. And my mom was big on that too. So, having that around, and I'll say that has its good and its bad, because it's like, oh yeah, I can do anything. And I'm this great, powerful person, but then like there's work that comes along, there's responsibility that
Come
comes
on.
along too. So it's like, I'm learning that, okay, with that greatness, the responsibility, yes, it's attached to it, but your greatness can overshadow and help you power through those responsibilities. So there's
Yeah,
been several people that have played a role, and just me being able to make these connections with these cycles. And then also, again, just being able to sit fully in my power.
I love it.
Mhm.
Well, let's jump on into this emotional intelligence space. And for anybody who might be listening who's not familiar with emotional intelligence, with that term, with that body of work that, people like yourself are really, digging deep in, can you explain to our listeners what emotional intelligence is, and again, what drew you to this body of work?
Yeah. So in plain terms, it's kind of straightforward as I can put it, is being able to understand your emotions and being able to manage your emotions to not only influence your own behavior, but help to influence the behavior of others, not control, but to influence.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Awareness of self is so important. And I think being that I get a chance to work with ladies, leaders, and little girls in our nonprofit organization, Diamond in the Rough, we work with specialists. We conduct workshops. We interweave, emotional intelligence and activities, because the sooner, the younger we are able to give voice how we're feeling, how we feel matters. Some people try to dismiss their feelings and their emotions. Some people's emotions are over the top, but nonetheless, emotions are real.
Right,
And
right.
so being able to give voice, being able to identify, and being able to do our work is
Mhm,
so important. And
mhm.
so when you talk about tapping into your personal power, how has an awareness in the space of emotional intelligence helped you? You talked about the fact that you had the support of your mother, and then when she passed, God placed other people, but you said it wasn't enough just to have these external voices that said, you go, Genese, you do it, do it, do it. But
Mhm.
you had to dig deep within and do your own work. So how has emotional intelligence helped you in your journey?
Yeah, well, I talk about some of that when I do my speech on emotional conquering. So, becoming an emotional conqueror has been the biggest way for me to do that work, to be able to get to that state emotionally where I'm for the most part, I'm content with life, because no matter what happens, I know that I have it within me to work things out, and I know that this is not a permanent situation. So, one, being able to acknowledge where I am emotionally, or acknowledge an emotionally charged event, something happens where I'm overjoyed, or I'm maybe in fear, or maybe doubt or worry, acknowledging that thing that's happened And I think you alluded to some people that just kind of brush them off and don't really acknowledge them, sweep them under the rug. That's something I do not do. I call a thing a thing, you know.
Mhm.
So that's one thing. And then being able to understand and really embrace the freedom and power that I have within. I know that society puts out a lot of like rules and regulations and things of that nature. And there's so many structures that are up now that put us into a fearful state. We're
Mhm.
afraid, maybe we're going to war. We're afraid of COVID. We're afraid of this and that happening. And they put us in that state to, again, it's easier to control people. It's easier for people to comply when they're in fear.
Yeah.
So being able to understand that you are way more powerful than what society has out there for you is another thing. And then some other things that I do too is just watching the company that I keep and the
Oh,
thoughts that I keep. Sometimes those people that you talk to and you feel really drained after you get off the phone with them, those are people you probably don't want to talk to so often. And
mhm.
sometimes they're coworkers, people you can't really help being around, but just finding a way to engage more into those relationships and invest more into those relationships that make you feel uplifted after you get done, make you feel like you're on top of the world after you get done. So those are some of the things that I practice on a regular basis to help me stay at a certain level emotionally. And again, it's content, just content. If I can be nothing else but content with life, I'm okay.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, that was such a power packed little point there. I mean, I got so many nuggets that I can pull from. I think that I love the fact that you talk about the noise that's out here in the world, especially now in this day and time. We have so many things vying for our attention between the news, political climate, COVID, the inflation. I mean, you name it. And I do wholeheartedly believe that the powers that be, if you will, they thrive on building fear in
Mhm.
us. It's a big money maker too.
Yeah,
Let's just call a thing a thing.
yeah.
But being aware, guarding our gates, being very intentional about the relationships and associations and making sure that we have brilliant boundaries and beautiful boundaries in our life that allow us to recognize what's good for us and what's not. And
Mhm.
like you said, even in workspaces or for those that are going to school, you might have to interact sometimes in families. You
Mhm.
might have people that might not be good for you, but you can still, one, be aware, and two, you can put up the boundaries that will help protect you and help you stay in that positive space. So
Yeah.
thank you for that.
Mhm.
So I know that you get a chance to coach people. I know you have a coaching arm of your business and you're helping people on this emotional journey, if you will. And so, are you seeing any particular trends among girls or young adults or women that you're working with? Are you finding a common thread um, in this day and time? And if so, how are you helping your clients overcome those challenges?
Yeah, great question. So, some of the things that I've seen as a professional coach and just kind of coaching family members and random people, I don't know if you get that experience too. They're like they know you have some gems, so they come and try to pluck every once in a while. But the things that I see more often than not, one is fear, definitely, anxiety and like depression, but fear specifically. I see that more regularly and I hear it more regularly. And for people who are faith based and who read their Bible, I usually go to the scripture that says, God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of joy, power, love, and a sound mind,
Oh, yeah, come on.
So again, and that's emotional intelligence right
Yeah,
there. Those are emotions, love, that power, that sound mindedness. For me,
mhm,
that's contentment.
yeah,
So usually I'll go to the scripture with people on that one because if you not getting that spirit from God, then where you getting the spirit from? So it's like it goes a little bit deeper than just, well, I'm afraid. I'm afraid. Well, where's your faith? Where's your
yeah.
faith? Where are you spiritually? This is
Mhm,
a sign of where you are spiritually, and not to scare them out of their fear, but at the same
right.
time just understanding this is something you need to be alarmed about. And then for people who are not necessarily of faith, having faith and belief in your abilities, because 9 times out of 10 people have accomplished things that they were really proud of, whether it was recently or even when they were maybe younger. And it's like, well, I didn't think I could do that, but I did, and there was a path that I followed. There was some structure that I incorporated into my life or incorporated into whatever, in order to achieve that thing. So being able to bring people back to a place of faith out of fear. And then, like I said, depression and anxiety. And usually you have to kind of unpack a little bit more with those things. Maybe it's pertaining to work, or maybe it is a family member or a friend or a situation, maybe finances. So being able to unpack that a little bit more and then kind of going in. And then, too, I think a lot of times where people are able to release and express their emotions, usually they feel a little bit better, even after they have talked about it. So not necessarily having a solution minded conversation per se when you're talking to someone in depression, but just being an ear, being an empathetic ear, sometimes it's useful.
And having a safe space to talk about those things, you know what I mean? So we're not suppressing them.
Yeah.
I like to refer to it, and people who follow this confidence cast may have heard me talk about a safe space to clean our crowns. We go through life, we have to show up, we have to be on, we have to do whatever life is calling for us to do, but be it therapy, be it daily moments of gratitude, whether it is a counselor, a specialist, a girlfriend group, a grief group, whatever it is, prayer, having time and space to examine, because we can go through life, even little things like this, which I learned for myself, that when I'm on 11 on a scale of 1 to 10, and I might be grinding, I might be going, things might be, not necessarily going bad, but when I'm pushing the pedal to the metal, I have to be mindful even of my breathing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I can go through, and it was some years ago that I had to realize, I think I'm taking shallow breaths. I might need some oxygen to my brain.
Right.
So, breathing, and there's a lot that has come about, in terms of that kind of stuff post-COVID, but really taking it out, being very intentional about being in tune with how you feel. Why do I feel that way? What's the root of this feeling and that I'm feeling, And then you said something else just a few minutes ago that you do with clients, and that's tracing back some of those triumphant times in life. Sometimes we are just going from thing to thing to thing, that we never stop to celebrate. We never stop to acknowledge, I did a hard thing. I did that thing.
You did that, yeah.
Permission
Right.
to give voice to that, because it's like, oh, that little thing. No, it's not a little thing. I think about you and going through school and doing what a lot of people could not do, just the time, the effort, the focus. I hope you are, and I'm sure you are, patting yourself as you go on through, because that's incredible. And so if there are people who are tuned in and are the ones that don't tend to stop and celebrate, we encourage you to do that and trace those triumphant moments in your life, because you have done some things, period, no matter how small or large. So
write them down, post them online, get out there.
That's right. That's right. So as we get ready to close, and this has just been fabulous, I would love to be able to connect and to continue conversations in future Confidence Cast. But Genese, how can our listeners connect with you? How can they follow you? How can they, inquire about the work that you do and maybe becoming a client? Can you tell them a little bit about that, and anything that you might have in your catalog of, that might be beneficial for our listeners?
Yeah. So on social media, you can find me at on Instagram at I am Genese 85. Facebook, I'm Genese Marie, Marie. I do have a website called genesespeaks.com. And so there you'll be able to kind of view a little bit of the work that I've done and kind of get connected with me there. I have my email address on there, which is conquerthoseemotions@gmail.com. Um, from there, like being able to connect with me for life coaching, public speaking, if you like, for emotional conquering. And then also I have a 30-day journal that I call a conqueror's log, an emotional conqueror's log, where you're able to go in and to assess emotions. And so I have like little questions, I have quotes in there. I have some little quick hacks that you can do. Breathing is one of those things where you do them like box breathing and stuff like that, which, I'm on point completely with you. I agree that's so important. So being able to go through 30 days and being able to assess where you are emotion and getting that out on paper, sometimes again, you just need to voice that, get those things out of your system and then being able to say, hey, where am I emotionally? I do have a log that's there, or a guided scale that's there for emotions to kind of help you understand, okay, well, if I'm at this level, I really want to get to this level. And then at the top, it's like joy, love, empowerment, freedom, stuff like that. And at the bottom, it's like fear, despair, depression, disappointment, things of that nature. So being able to understand where you are on the scale and then being able to work your way up the scale is the goal for the Conqueror's Log.
I love it. It sounds like a tool that everybody needs to have in their toolbox, their
Yeah.
emotional toolbox. So I love it. So if you happen to be listening to this confidence cast and you're maybe behind the wheel and you can't jot down all the details, you can visit my website at The Real Nicole Steele, or you can visit us at She's Crowned with Confidence for all of the details about how to connect with Genese and how to take advantage of those resources. I want to also invite those of you that may be joining us for the first time to check out my most recent book, The Tale of 10 Crowns, which is the kind of foundation of this whole confidence cast. You can find it on the website. You can also find it on Amazon. If you've got a small group, a women's group, a book club, what have you, it is a great read, just in your personal catalog as well. It's also available on Kindle. And last but not least, I invite those of you that are tuned in to join our clear, confident, and courageous community, the Beyond Brilliant Network. So if you are a woman that is looking for your tribe that shares your vibe, you can check us out over there. We've got courses, we've got content, and we've got a community of like-minded women to help push you in your destiny and encourage you and help you keep that crown of confidence atop your head. So, Genese, I thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I've loved it. Oh, this has been amazing.
Yeah, and we look forward to the incredible things that you'll continue to do in this very important space. So until next time, we'll see you later. God bless.
Thank you for tuning in to She's Crowned with Confidence with Dr. Nicole Steele, the Confidence Coach. This Confidence Cast has been brought to you in part by Diamond in the Rough Youth Development Program and Gym Makers LLC. For more information on this podcast, previous episodes, programs, or products, simply visit she'scrownedwithconfidence.com or therealnicolesteele.com. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Nicole Steele. Thank you.